Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our Thursday weather update, January the 18th. And we're forecasting a cold snap on the way, a drop in the humidity, and a tropical cyclone to keep an eye on. So there's a lot happening. Let's have a look at the animated wind map. It is a warm day today across the country with this subtropical airflow moving down. And if you don't have the subtropical side of it, you've still got a northerly blowing through. So most places today are fairly mild. Some in the east, though, maybe slightly cooler with that northeasterly breeze coming in. But the humidity in the north and some over here in the west, where that subtropical flow is coming into some of you, you're certainly feeling that at the moment. We've got some rain on the way. There's a low over towards Tasmania. That's drifting in. 250 millimetres possible for some parts of the west coast. When we recorded this, there was an orange rain warning from MetService, so please do keep up to date with those warnings and watches from them. Not so much in the way of rain for the North Island. This is a three-day rainfall map, and the area here that's highlighted is from a low that may be coming in around Sunday. Not a cyclone, just a very weak low pressure zone. So let's try and make sense of it all. That is the low I was just talking about. The one that's likely to become a cyclone is this one up here in the northern part of the Coral Sea. Further to the south, we've got a low pressure zone. That's the one coming out of Tasmania. And that is the reason why the windy nor'westers are coming back in again for the South Island. You've got some lighter winds coming back after that, but it's been pretty windy this summer for parts of the South Island. More of a classical or classic El Nino setup for the south, but the North Island's been quite different. Northeasterly winds mean a few showers, a bit of humidity, a lot of humidity, remains at the moment in the north of the country. So this weekend, it still remains humid. That airflow is still coming down for much of the country. But the South Island, more of a westerly flow out of Australia. Won't be cold, but just slightly different airflow in there and some rain or showers caught up in between the two. So by Sunday, that's when the chance of that rain moves in around East Cape, Eastern Bay of Plenty, Gisborne, maybe later in the day, Northern Hawke's Bay. It's a little bit fine line though. Most of that heavy rain is offshore. Most of the North Island is dry, but it only has to move in a little bit more and suddenly it's a wet day. Mostly dry elsewhere though. Now Monday gets a little bit more interesting because as that low from the north drops down southwards, a colder southerly is coming in, and that's coming around the next big high pressure zone, well out south of Australia. So a cooler day on Monday, but really it's a bit messy. You may not necessarily feel it, but you will notice, I think in the north of the country, that humidity, and for anyone else in the country, maybe not just the north, where that humidity, the mugginess has been pretty bad, that should start to ease significantly on Monday, because on Tuesday, southerly winds are coming up from most of the country. A few showers, a few downpours here and there, long dry spells, but much cooler in the south. Temperatures, maximum temperatures on Tuesday for some of you in the lower South Island, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 degrees. So not exactly the hottest midsummer weather, but there is high pressure coming in behind it. Now, here's where the cyclone is quite likely to be. It's likely to be named, I would imagine, as early as Monday, maybe Tuesday, around then. And it's out in the middle of the Coral Sea, so a perfect area for a storm to form. Now, the Coriolis effect, the way the Earth spins, means that this storm naturally wants to pull towards New Zealand, but the easterly flow up here kind of pushing it in towards Queensland's coastline. But the high coming in here may sort of pause that storm for a week up into the Australian area. But it doesn't mean it's finished with New Zealand, because at some point this will move along. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on, what happens after that high moves through. So by Tuesday next week, two different models showing where the storm is likely to be. One's from America, one's from Europe. Basically, they are bang on showing the storm in the same place in the middle of the Coral Sea. But by Wednesday, hasn't moved much, drifting slowly. It's not moving sideways, it's moving downwards, southwards. So it's heading towards Gladstone and Brisbane areas, and the high that's stopping it from coming to New Zealand is smack bang over the top of us, even with a bit of an easterly flow coming in here across to Sydney, all the way from Gisborne side of New Zealand. So the high is in charge, but as it drifts further out to our east, there is a vulnerable bit, because as that high moves away, the next high is well out over the Indian Ocean. So the vulnerable area is in the middle, the gap, where there's low pressure here and low pressure all the way between. So as that all shifts along next week, that's when the storm has a chance to drop southwards or be pulled along towards us. There is some computer modelling that some of you have seen and asked us about it, showing it directly hitting the North Island of New Zealand on the 1st of February. So that's possible, but it's a long way out, a very long way out. And at this time of the year, the controlling feature, high pressure, and it's slow and lazy, a bit like a lot of us are at this time of the year. And so it may not move along quickly. It only has to pause a little bit and it holds it all up. But the computer modeling, it is suggesting that there is some risk of that storm reaching New Zealand. So we will keep a very close eye on it. But for now, to end on a silver lining, high pressure over most of the country on Wednesday, a few showers for the dry east. I think they'll be welcome. And over in Australia, we're doing an Australian video today, so we won't talk about them much, but things are warming back up for some of them as well. They've got a bit of a cooler change. In fact, I'd argue that some parts of Sydney down to Hobart and Melbourne have had a much cooler summer than we've had in New Zealand. So it's not all bad news over here in New Zealand. That is all from me. Hope you're having a great summer so far. No video tomorrow, Friday. Back again on Monday. We will see you then.